I will be out Sunday, but I'm feeling a lot better, excited to get back into practice today, and then feeling really, really positive about getting back into one of the games at the back-to-back. Obviously, difficult coming back in a back-to-back, so we'll have to be cautious of that, but I feel a lot better, and like I said, excited to get back into practice, and this week has been very helpful for my overall health. So.
We need to have a very honest conversation about what the Indiana Fever are walking into tonight, because the circumstances surrounding this game reveal something important and uncomfortable about the current state of this franchise, about the decisions that have been made at the coaching level, and about what this team actually looks like when its most important player is not on the floor. The Indiana Fever are heading to Las Vegas to face the Aces, and Caitlin Clark is not making the trip. Let that land in its full context. Because this is not simply an injury situation being managed responsibly. This is the direct, observable consequence of a coaching and organizational environment that has generated sustained and serious concern throughout this entire season. The absence of Clark from this game is the most visible manifestation of everything that has been discussed, debated, and criticized about how Indiana has managed its franchise cornerstone in the months leading up to this moment. And what fills the void in her absence is, by all indications, exactly what critics of Stephanie White's coaching philosophy have been warning about. The Kelsey Mitchell isolation-heavy offense, ball pounding, high-volume shot creation through one-on-one play. The style that was Indiana's identity before Clark arrived, and that this coaching staff appears to find considerably more comfortable than the pace and space system that Clark's presence demands and enables. This is Stephanie White getting exactly what a segment of observers believe she has always preferred: a roster, a game plan, and an organizational dynamic built around a different offensive engine than the one that has transformed this franchise's commercial and competitive profile.
It made sense if he was willing and available to come on board and help us out.
Caitlin said she's out for this weekend's game. Does Ty Harris plan to still keep her in there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you Caitlin practice at all with you guys today, and how does that work with her not?
Yeah, today will be her first day back. And so it'll be her first day back. She'll be modified. We'll go through some stuff.
Now let us be precise about what Indiana is actually facing tonight, because the matchup itself tells a story that goes beyond personnel decisions and coaching philosophy. The Las Vegas Aces are a legitimate contender. They have multiple reliable offensive options that can produce at a high level on any given night. Jackie Young has been finding her stride and is averaging 16 points with 7 assists. Kennedy Carter, coming off the bench, is contributing approximately 14 points per game in a reserve role. Chelsea Gray continues to provide veteran playmaking and scoring as a starter, averaging 13 points and 7 assists. Jordan Canada has been contributing as a perimeter threat, and in the absence of Asia Wilson, who is dealing with her own availability questions heading into this game, Aaliyah Boston's counterpart in the front court conversation, Alyssa Thomas, has been a serious presence, posting 29 points and 8 rebounds in her most recent performance. That last number is the one that frames the front court matchup most sharply: 29 and 8. That is what the Aces are getting from their interior presence, even when their best player is managing her availability. And Indiana is going to counter that with Aaliyah Boston, who has had an inconsistent season and who has been criticized for drifting progressively further from the paint-dominant game that defines her value as a $6 million investment. The Aces have redundancy. They have multiple options capable of stepping into expanded roles and delivering significant production. If one player has a difficult shooting night, there is another capable of filling that offensive gap without the team losing its competitive footing. That is what genuine organizational depth looks like, and it is the product of sustained and intentional roster construction combined with coaching that extracts maximum value from available personnel.
Do you have any updates on Caitlin and her status, or you expect her to practice today?
No, she's going to be doing an individual workout today, and be able to add some things.
Just Kelsey with the shoe deal.
Yeah.
Just how excited are you for her, and what'd you think of the first version that she brought out?
I'm real excited for her. You know, she deserves it. I'm excited that she gets this opportunity, and certainly to work with Ty and to be able to do those things. And the first one first time she came out in the shoes. You recognize it because it wasn't what she typically wears, and just asking her about it, and she said she was trying them out, and I'm happy for Kelsey that she's finally getting her flowers.
Indiana, by contrast, has a one-dimensional offensive challenge ahead of them tonight. Without Clark generating the spacing, the pace, the gravity, and the playmaking that her game uniquely provides, the Fever are dependent on a narrow offensive menu. Kelsey Mitchell needs to shoot efficiently and at high volume. Aaliyah Boston needs to impose her will in the front court against a capable Aces interior defense. And someone from the bench, whether Sophie Cunningham from three-point range or Maisha Hines-Allen creating in transition, needs to provide a meaningful offensive contribution beyond the starting unit. The problem with that formula is its fragility. Kelsey Mitchell is a legitimate scorer capable of big nights. That is not being disputed. But the difference between Mitchell having an efficient shooting game and an inefficient one is the difference between Indiana being competitive and Indiana being dominated. When Mitchell is forcing contested looks, jacking up high-volume attempts without the rhythm and flow that a system built around her would generate, the offensive numbers deteriorate rapidly. This team does not have the complementary pieces to compensate for an off night from its primary offensive option when that option is not Caitlin Clark.
I think, I wasn't on the committee this summer that said it needs to be less physical. That was, obviously I'm on board with that and I agree with that, but that wasn't like my doing. That was the coaches. That was, that's what they really thought would help the product of this game. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be mistakes. Refs are going to make mistakes. They're not going to see everything. The egregious ones, you gotta call. That's just the fact of the matter. You cannot miss things like that. And, it's been going on for 3 years. It's just like, we got to find ways to continue to improve. And I talked to a lot of these refs before the game, and they're great people, and their job is really, really hard. And I never want to, nag, and nobody wants to do that. And they have feelings and emotions just like I do. I understand that, and that, it's a tough spot to be in. But we just gotta be better all around. And I think that kind of goes back to my point of the investment, the teaching, the treating them like they should be treated. Invest in them, make them a full-time employee. Pay them what they're supposed to be paid, train them all year round. How can we pour into them to make them better? I think about that rather than just do your job, make the call. It's hard at the same time. So I think there's both sides to it.
You got time for one more, make it a good one.
Yeah. Thanks, I appreciate it.
It could be easy just in human nature, take those things for granted.
Yeah.
Become constant. What keeps you grateful for those?
Yeah, you never take any of that for granted. And, I think it's really cool and probably not talked about enough because everybody's worried about everything else right now. We have 3 all-star starters. That's a really, really hard thing to do in this league, especially with how much talent there is and how well everybody's been playing. So just really proud of my teammates. And I think they would both say, we're not able to do it without everybody else and the people that pour into us every single day and our organization that has our backs constantly. So just really happy for us. It'll be fun to be in Chicago with them. I think my first 2 years we were all on the same team, so this might be the first time we get split up. If it was our choice, we'd all be on the same team. We were discussing it. I said I'm probably going to be the one left out to dry by myself. They'll be on the same team, but we'll see how it turns out. But whoever is drafting us, if you want to keep us on the same side, we'd appreciate that. So thanks, guys.
Clark generates total points differently than any other player in this league. She is the leading contributor to her team's total offensive output in ways that the statistics capture only partially. The spacing her presence creates, the defensive attention she commands that opens opportunities for teammates, the transition opportunities generated by her playmaking in transition. All of it disappears when she is not on the floor. And what replaces it is a slower, more predictable, more defensively containable version of Indiana basketball that the Aces, with their veteran roster and their experienced coaching staff, are well equipped to manage and exploit. If A'ja Wilson plays in this game, the analysis becomes considerably shorter. It is over. A healthy Wilson changes the competitive ceiling of Las Vegas in ways that Indiana simply cannot match in Clark's absence. But even if Wilson's status limits her contribution or keeps her out entirely, the Aces still have more than enough to handle a Fever team operating without its offensive engine. Sophie Cunningham has been direct and honest in her public commentary about the broader situation surrounding this team and this league. Her position has been consistent and refreshing in an environment that has often rewarded vagueness over clarity. Play basketball. Stop letting external noise become the dominant conversation. Get off the internet and lock into what matters, which is performing on the court at the highest possible level. That message applies with particular urgency to this game, because what Indiana needs tonight is not a referendum on coaching philosophy or organizational dysfunction. It needs players who compete, execute, and find a way to be competitive despite the significant disadvantage their circumstances have created. Stephanie White does have a documented pattern of performing credibly in underdog situations. There is something in her approach to games where Indiana is not favored that produces competitive performances that her record in evenly matched or favorable situations does not always replicate. Whether that translates into a win tonight against a Las Vegas team with multiple dangerous weapons and a coaching staff that has demonstrated sustained excellence is a genuine question with an uncertain answer. But the honest assessment of this matchup, stripped of any organizational allegiances or coaching preferences, points clearly toward the Aces. They have more options. They have better positional depth. They have a coaching staff that has built and managed a competitive roster with consistent intentionality. And they are not missing a player whose absence creates a gap this large in their offensive production. The contrast between what these two franchises represent at this moment is striking and significant. Las Vegas has built a genuine contender through organizational coherence, smart personnel decisions, and coaching that maximizes the talent available across the roster. Indiana has Caitlin Clark, who, when healthy and properly utilized, is the most individually impactful player in this league, surrounded by organizational dysfunction that has generated sustained national conversation about whether the people responsible for supporting her are actually committed to doing so. Tonight, without Clark, we see what Indiana is when the organizational questions are stripped away and only the basketball remains. And what remains is a team that is dependent on Kelsey Mitchell's shot making, that needs Aaliyah Boston to rediscover her interior dominance, that requires meaningful bench contributions from players who have been inconsistently deployed throughout this season, and that will need something approaching a perfect defensive performance to stay competitive against an Aces roster that has multiple ways to generate quality offense. The coaching dimension of this game carries its own significance. The Aces have a coaching staff that has consistently demonstrated the ability to make in-game adjustments, exploit defensive vulnerabilities in opposing schemes, and deploy their personnel in ways that maximize competitive output. Indiana, by contrast, is heading into this game with a coach whose inability or unwillingness to make meaningful schematic adjustments has been one of the central criticisms of this entire season. If the game gets away from Indiana early, the critical question becomes whether Stephanie White has the tactical flexibility and the in-game creativity to find a different approach that disrupts Las Vegas's rhythm and gives the Fever a path back into the game. The history of this season does not provide confidence that such an adjustment is coming. The key variables are clear. Mitchell needs to be efficient, not just high volume. Boston needs to control the front court matchup and rediscover her paint dominance. The bench needs someone to step up with meaningful offensive production. And Indiana needs to control pace, make this a defensive battle, and minimize the possessions where Las Vegas's depth advantages become decisive. Even if all of those things happen, Las Vegas is still the right side of this game. Their margin for error is considerably wider than Indiana's. Their ability to absorb a bad shooting night from one contributor and replace that production with another is something Indiana does not possess in Clark's absence. This game will tell us something real about what the Indiana Fever actually are right now, underneath the storylines and the organizational noise and the coaching controversies. When the engine is removed and the scaffolding is exposed, what stands? Tonight, we find out, and the honest answer, based on the available evidence, is that what stands without Caitlin Clark is a team that is not equipped to beat the Las Vegas Aces. The Aces should handle business tonight, and the questions about Indiana's direction that have defined this entire season will still be waiting when the final buzzer sounds.